The rain had stopped just moments before dawn, leaving the streets of the small town of Maplewood glistening beneath the pale orange light of early morning. The smell of wet earth hung in the air, mingling with the faint aroma of bread baking in the old corner bakery. The world felt freshly washed, as if even nature had decided to start over that day. In a modest little house on the edge of town, Emma Lawson stirred a pot of oatmeal, the sound of the bubbling mixture faintly filling the quiet kitchen. The house felt emptier than usual, a silence that wasn't peaceful but heavy. She glanced at the framed photograph on the counter, her husband Daniel smiling, his arms wrapped around their 10-year-old daughter, Lily. It had been almost 2 years since Daniel's sudden passing, and though time was supposed to heal, Emma still woke each morning with a hollow ache that reminded her how deeply love could wound when it was lost. Money had grown tight since then. Emma's job at the local library barely covered the bills, and with Lily's school fees and the increasing cost of everything, some nights she went to bed wondering how long she could keep it all together. But Emma had learned to smile even when she didn't feel like it. She smiled for Lily, for her students at the library, and for the neighbors who waved to her as if her cheerfulness might somehow make their own days brighter. That morning, as she packed Lily's school lunch, a peanut butter sandwich, an apple, and a single chocolate chip cookie, she noticed that the jar of peanut butter was nearly empty. She sighed quietly. "We'll make it stretch," she whispered to herself, though she wasn't sure how. When Lily came bounding into the kitchen, her curls bouncing, Emma's exhaustion softened into tenderness. "Morning, Mom. Guess what? Today's kindness day at school. Mrs. Green said we have to do one kind thing for someone." Emma smiled and tucked a loose strand of hair behind Lily's ear. "That sounds wonderful. What kind thing are you going to do?" Lily thought for a moment, her nose scrunching. "Maybe share my lunch with Sarah. She never has snacks." "That's a lovely idea," Emma said. "Kindness always finds its way back to us." But Emma wasn't sure she believed those words anymore. After dropping Lily at school, she walked the few blocks to the library, pulling her worn coat tighter around her. The autumn wind carried the crispness of the coming winter, and she could already feel the bite of it in her bones. She passed by the small park where an older man sat daily on a bench, a shopping cart beside him filled with mismatched blankets and plastic bags. He was one of the few who always smiled at her. "Morning, ma'am," he said, tipping his hat, a threadbare thing that had seen better days. "Good morning, Mr. Cole," Emma replied. She had never asked his first name, but the others called him Old Cole, a man whose past was whispered about, once a carpenter, then a man undone by grief, by loss, by life itself. Today, he looked colder than usual, his thin jacket no match for the morning chill. Emma hesitated. "Have you had breakfast?" she asked. He shook his head but smiled anyway. "Don't worry about me, miss. I've got my coffee." He lifted a styrofoam cup, empty by the look of it. Emma felt a pang. Without overthinking, she reached into her bag and handed him the apple she had packed for herself. "Here," she said softly. "It's fresh." He blinked, surprised. "You sure?" "Of course." He accepted it with a grateful nod, and she continued walking, unaware that her small gesture had already begun to weave threads of something larger, something healing. The library was quiet that morning. Few people came in on rainy days, and even fewer stayed long. As Emma organized the children's reading corner, she noticed a young woman hesitating near the entrance. Her clothes were neat but worn, her eyes tired yet hopeful. "Can I help you?" Emma asked kindly. The woman stepped forward, clutching a paper. "I'm looking for a job posting. It said the library needed part-time help." Emma nodded, remembering the notice. "Yes, though it's only a few hours a week and the pay's not much." "That's fine," the woman said quickly. "Anything helps. My name's Clara." They talked for a while, and something in Clara's quiet determination struck Emma deeply. She saw herself, or rather, the version of herself who had once walked into the world after Daniel's death, desperate for a new start. Emma promised to put in a word with the head librarian. When Clara left, Emma found herself smiling, not out of habit this time, but because it felt good to help someone else. That evening, when she picked up Lily from school, her daughter was unusually quiet. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" Lily looked up, eyes glistening. "Sarah cried today. She said her family doesn't have enough food. I shared my sandwich, but I wished I could do more." Emma's heart twisted. "You did something beautiful, Lily. Sometimes, even a small act can mean more than you know." But as they drove home, Emma couldn't shake the image of a hungry child. That night, as she tucked Lily into bed, her eyes fell on the small savings jar she kept on her dresser. It wasn't much, maybe $40, money she had been saving for Christmas. She stared at it for a long while before making a decision. The next day, Emma stopped by the grocery store after work. She filled a small bag with essentials, rice, milk, pasta, and some fruit. It wasn't much, but it was something. Then she walked to Sarah's neighborhood, a cluster of worn apartments on the far side of town. She hesitated outside the door, her heart thudding. What if they refused? What if they felt insulted? But before she could lose her nerve, she knocked. A woman answered, Sarah's mother, her eyes weary and her clothes thin. When Emma introduced herself, the woman's expression softened into confusion. "You're Lily's mom, right?" "Yes," Emma said, her voice gentle. "Lily mentioned that things have been a little hard lately. I thought maybe you could use a few groceries." The woman's eyes filled instantly. "Oh, you don't know what this means," she whispered. "We've been trying to stretch what little we have until next week's paycheck." Emma handed her the bag and smiled, though her own throat was tight. "It's nothing, really. Just neighbors helping neighbors." But when she walked away, the chill in the air didn't bite as much. There was warmth blooming in her chest, a warmth she hadn't felt in years. Over the next few weeks, Emma found herself noticing more, the small needs around her, the quiet struggles that went unseen. She began leaving spare change in the donation jar at the bakery, offering to watch the neighbors' kids when their mother worked late, and volunteering an hour a week at the local shelter where Mr. Cole often ate. Each act was small, almost insignificant on its own, but together they began to fill the emptiness inside her, not with distraction, but with meaning. One evening, as winter settled over Maplewood, Emma and Lily stopped by the park. Mr. Cole was there, as always, but now he wore a thicker coat, one Emma recognized as Daniel's old one. She had donated it to the shelter weeks ago. "Looks good on you," she said warmly. He chuckled, his eyes crinkling. "Keeps me warmer than I've been in years." "Thank you, miss." Emma smiled but said nothing, letting the moment speak for itself. Christmas came quietly that year. There were no extravagant gifts, no decorations beyond a small tree Lily had adorned with handmade paper stars. But it was the happiest Emma had felt in a long time. Then, one afternoon in late January, the library received a letter, an anonymous donation to fund new children's books and reading programs. Inside was a note, "For the woman who taught me that kindness still exists. May these books plant seeds of hope for others, as she did for me." Emma's hands trembled as she read it. She didn't know who had sent it, Clara, perhaps, or Sarah's family, or maybe someone she had helped without realizing it. But in that moment, she understood something deeply. Every act of giving had been healing her, piece by piece, in ways she hadn't noticed. One act had led to another, and somehow, through helping others mend, she had found her own broken parts beginning to knit together. A few months later, the library organized a community event, a book drive and food collection to help local families. Emma watched as people streamed in, arms full of canned goods and gently used books. Clara was there, now working part-time and smiling more freely. Mr. Cole had volunteered to build wooden shelves for the children's corner. And Sarah's mother had brought fresh baked bread for everyone to share. Lily stood beside Emma, holding her hand tightly. "Mom," she whispered, looking around the bustling room, "you were right. Kindness really does come back." Emma looked down at her daughter, tears welling. "Yes, sweetheart. It always does." As laughter filled the room, Emma felt Daniel's memory beside her, not as a wound, but as a warmth. For the first time in years, she didn't feel the ache of loss as something empty. She felt it as something sacred, a reminder that love, when shared, never really disappears. It simply changes form, turning into acts that ripple outward, healing the hearts they touch. Outside, the evening light turned golden, casting long, soft shadows across the town that had once felt too small and too sad. Now, it shimmered with quiet kindness, in the bakery's open door, in the laughter of children, in the simple smile of a stranger. Emma realized that giving had not just helped others, it had brought her back to life. It had rebuilt her, one gentle act at a time. Because sometimes, when you give what little you have, whether it's food, time, or love, you discover that the true miracle isn't in what you give away. It's in what you receive in return. And on that soft, golden evening in Maplewood, as the first stars appeared in the fading sky, Emma finally understood the truth she had spoken so often to Lily: when you give with an open heart, it's not just others who are healed. It's you.